Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. This is a subcommittee on appropriations, economic development, and what we're going to do is just breeze through the amended 11. So why don't we go with Gary Black? He's probably still campaigning. Gary, come on up here, and you got to do a state of the agriculture someplace, I'm sure, don't you?
Georgia Department of Agriculture, and we're excited about the prospects. Even during these challenging times, we're really excited about many of the opportunities that we have to serve the state's largest industry and to really engage a department that touches every Georgian. And we're going to be about making sure that they understand the important role this department plays in their life. Opportunity is missed by most people because it is dressed in overalls and looks like hard work. That's a famous quote. It's one of my favorite quotes, and it's from Thomas Alva Edison. One thing that I'm finding, members of the committee, is that we have a tremendous Department of Agriculture. There are people that are ready to go to work, people to go roll up their sleeves and kind of catch a little bit of a 21st century vision that we've been talking about for some time. But as we start to look at the broad base of where we're going in the department, I did want to touch base with you some about our management changes and the way we're going to approach this. The department's going to be managed in 3 divisions. There'll be a chief operating officer, and that's Mr. Billy Skaggs. Billy is going to see the day-to-day management, all the things that are actually external to the department, those services and regulatory functions that we provide. This includes those areas of food safety, livestock and poultry, fertilizer, feed and seed, marketing, and our farmers markets, and those wide range of outreach programs of the department. We also now have a chief administrative officer, and that's Dr. James Sutton. Dr. Sutton is with us today, and many of you know Dr. Sutton from his former role at the department, but he's going to oversee the internal operations of the department. That division includes administrative law, procurement, information technology, personnel, the budget, and all of our accounting. We have a third leg of the stool that we hope to be able to put in within a year, and I think it's really important. Right now it's going to be part of operations, but we'd like to pull our Homeland Security and our law enforcement under a chief security officer. That would be our third senior person. Right now it's not feasible for us to do that, but ideally our law enforcement and Homeland Security needs to be under a central chain of command. Right now, we've found what's one of the new findings that they are not. They are now, but we'd like to really get a better professional approach to law enforcement, and we do have some good plans to that. Now, back in Dr. Sutton's organization, though, I do want to introduce, and certainly y'all already know her, and we're delighted to have her on our Department of Agriculture staff. But Ms. Sydney Moody has joined us to be our Director of Public Policy. So, in the past, you've seen any number of folks across here making different presentations and having different responsibilities. We've consolidated that. I'm tickled. We're very delighted to have Sydney on our staff. She'll be here to serve you in any way. And as you need to communicate with our department, we'd ask you to call her first, and then we'll be busy about getting you the answers that you need, certainly during the budget process, but throughout all the policy discussions as well. We're starting our strategic planning process, and currently we will have 19 groups to look at various disciplines revolving around not only the department but the agricultural industry. As I've said it in transition meetings and out on the road, and I really want to share it with y'all today. When this task is completed, we are going to know why we do what we do. It's a big challenge to know what you do and why you do it. And that's been perhaps one of the challenges that we've in setting a new direction. But I'm really appreciative of the way department employees have embraced this concept. I can tell you right now, because we've always done it this way, is not a satisfactory answer to me. And so we're going to bring a little breath of fresh air when it comes to the management. And again, we anticipate strong recommendations from our strategic planning process, and that should help us. I'm certain that it will help us as we make our cuts for the FY12 budget. You may have read about Operation Facelift in the paper. Let me tell you about it. Tuesday afternoons from 4:30 to 6:30, employees began last Tuesday evening staying late to help us clean this building and really retake it for the people of Georgia. Two things you need to know about this. This is a voluntary action by employees, and the majority of the supplies that we have are actually going to be donated. It's a team building activity which is desperately needed at the department. We had a very positive response last week. We had 50 employees stay to help scrub walls, to help prep for paint, to help repair some things in bathrooms and odds and ends, again, at a voluntary basis and a team building spirit, and I think that's going to be really, really good for us in the future. We hope to be able to reopen your Department of Agriculture in a little more formal way on the Governor's Ag Day, March 22nd. It's an aggressive goal, but if not, we hope later in the spring we'll certainly have a celebration we can all enjoy. Another change that I envision is with our inspectors. Now, let's take our good friend Chairman England and his business. You all know Chairman England's in the farm supply business. I think currently he has 5 different inspectors from this department that visit his store. These different inspectors all have a specific area. This means that on 5 different occasions he has to stop what he's doing and tend to the inspector. We're exploring, I'm committing to you that we're going to have a plan for the future to have to be able to really put many of these inspection functions together in somewhat of a super inspector, so we can have one person go do what they need to for this department and then get out of the business person's and be able to move. What we'll wind up doing is saving some money and saving the business owner some time, and I'm really pleased about these ideas and again the way people are beginning to embrace this as we move forward. We are team players. We have received a 4% cut in Governor Deal's budget. This is not an easy task for us, but we've already begun to manage to that 4%. In the past 2 weeks, our changes have mainly been personnel. Even with our new hires, we've already saved in upwards of $400,000. We expect to make some additional changes throughout the reorganization that will help us manage to this cut. In November, I enlisted Mr. Russell Hinton's help to prepare us for the task at hand. We hope to meet this week. We had a discussion last week because we've asked for an audit, kind of a start number, and look forward to being able to share those results with the committee as we move forward. I'm sure you're wondering how we're doing with our fees. According to the accountants of the department, we're on track to meet our projected fee revenue, but the market bulletin is an exception. I'm not sure if you saw in last week's bulletin, but I shared with the readers that the bulletin, for the bulletin to continue, we need the subscriptions paid. This is one area where I just, from looking in the past, I wish they had been much more aggressive from the start of this fiscal year, because the facts are we're still mailing over 100,000. But there only been 14,000 subscribers paid. You required through the budget adjustments in House Bill 1055 that there be 58,000 paid subscribers this year for us to continue. And so, here's what we've done immediately, and just in the last couple of weeks. You'll see if you get your market bulletin today. If you've paid your subscription, it looks like this. The top page is going to have some of our news like normal. If you're some of the 95,000 have not paid, we're using the top just at the fold to actually be your invoice and to remind you that losing the market bulletin for history's sake is at stake. And it's a call for subscribers, and that'll continue through the end of April. Our objective is to raise 44,000 new subscribers by the end of April, by the end of the General Assembly, so that we can meet our budget goal. In doing so, one of the things that we've deputized all 600 employees of the Department of Agriculture to be salesmen for the market bulletin. They're going to sort of seem like they're in high school waiting for their senior prom or something, selling magazines. But we're going to do this. We're going to trust them to do it. We're going to ask them to contact their Sunday school class members, all the various people that they have in their sphere of influence, in order to save this important part of Georgia history, but also an important part of commerce today. Because I tell you, it goes back to 1917, and it's important we do this. We're not going to lose it on my watch, but I want you to know we're going to put it on a sound business footing.
Commissioner, let me stop you there.
Yes, sir.
We've got a question here from Chairman Roberts.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Commissioner, let me ask you a question. I know you've just come on, but why have we still been sending out the bulletin if they hadn't paid? I mean, can you?
Yeah, well, it's exactly if you had instructed me and I'd been in a position that we needed to begin maybe a year's long there was a subscription run. So if they're in for a year, when they would have renewed, I would have immediately made sure that they paid, but that wasn't done.
Okay.
It's actually been postponed.
Okay.
And so to some extent, we robbed Peter to pay Paul, and now Peter and Paul both are broke.
All right. Okay.
As far as keeping it going.
Commissioners, I got your name on it like the former commissioner had his name on it?
Yes, sir, it does.
Okay. What's it cost y'all a year now to mail it? 100,000.
Total cost, Mr. Chairman. I think if I'm back to a per unit cost, about 23 cents a piece.
Okay. Used to be what, 600,000 a year?
Yeah, yeah. You had, if I remember the round numbers again, House Bill 1055. There was a reduction given to us of 580,000 and some change. I think that helped us keep about 150 and some change for overhead. Okay. But let's turn to what I'm looking at. This as a business proposition. What I think is most important is not just 44,000 more, not just to meet your goal, but what could possibly happen for the betterment of this department if we have 100,000 subscribers. 200,000 subscribers could help support our marketing efforts for agricultural goods, and I think that's a reality. It's just a matter of having an aggressive business plan.
So you're sending those out once a week now?
No, it's every other week.
Every other week.
26 times a year.
Okay. Yeah, you still get it online. It's free online, right?
Yeah, but that's a good point, Mr. Chairman. One of the things I'm committed to do again, once we get a sound business footing, is to make sure that the online version. Right now, it's very static. We're not even asking people for their email, or they've not in the past. We're making that transition right now, but it needs to be. I would like to see the online version actually be real time. I think it could be like Craigslist. I think if my good friend from Brooks County has 10 heifers that he'd like to sell, he ought to be able to upload a 30-second video, and we have server room to have that capacity. But I think that actually could be a subscription too, and we've got the capacity to do that.
Okay. And you want us to call Sydney and not you? Isn't that what I heard you say?
You're always welcome to call me, but Sydney is at your place. She will be here on a daily basis. You might see her, but you can always call me.
Is your chief of staff here today?
Our chief operating officer is actually meeting with our folks. Billy Skaggs is up. You know,
Isn't he
Billy.
your chief of staff?
Yes. Well, he and James are peers from an administrative and operations. But but you know, Billy is actually with our staff in the Gainesville office today. We're busy about doing that, introducing ourselves. Had a good visit down south at the Tifton Lab. With a good staff and a good facility. I look forward to bringing y'all a report about that in the future too.
Okay, you can go ahead. Are you finished now, or
Mr. Chairman? I think that about wraps us up. I want you to know that we are busy about serving folks. We're busy about performing the tasks at this department in a professional manner. We look forward to serving you, and thank you for the privilege of being here today.
Question: how many employees do y'all have now, Gary?
We're just north of 600.
600.
Yes,
how many cars do you have now?
My last number was somewhere around 270. Is it down now? About 250 now.
Okay. Do you need more cars?
There are some that are always in this business. I mean, they're 100. We have a good number that have 150,000 and up. But we're gonna. We don't have a long laundry list. What we got to do is get everything in this department on sound business footing. That's what I'm focused on right now.
I guess you're still driving your diesel truck then, aren't you?
I still have it, but I also have a vehicle that was left has 152,000 miles on it too.
Okay. The Crown Vic?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's love for you to see it sometime.
Okay. Okay.
But I'm thankful to have it. Thankful we got it.
Okay. Any other questions from anybody? Okay.
I'm grateful to you. Thank you, sir.
And we'll be calling another meeting soon. So, okay. Let's see. Let's do DOT. They probably need to get back to work. Gerald, where's Gerald Ross? He's supposed to be here. Okay. You got all my information for me, Gerald?
Yes, I do.
Good. I quit taking this when I quit AJC. Hey, Kay.
We'll be glad to proceed. Good afternoon. We'll be glad to proceed however the committee would like. I can walk through the tracking document.
Yeah, why don't you do that briefly?
Okay.
And identify yourself to the.
I'm Kate Furman. I'm the treasurer for Georgia Department of Transportation. We've got our budget director, Dion Denson, here, our finance director, Angela Whitworth, and, of course, you know Gerald Ross, our chief engineer. Our tracking document begins on page 84 of your book. And let me walk through the changes that have been made so far, and then I'll certainly take any questions, or certainly Gerald can answer questions as well. In airport aid, there was an increase to reflect revenue from federal government, and that was $15.3 million. That is not new money. That is just.
We got a question already from Chairman Rob.
Let me ask one question on this. And the other day I asked the commissioner as well, but and he answered it, I think, right, because of the cut in the $300,000. We don't lose any state. Federal dollars.
Yes,
but if we had that $300,000, then am I not correct that we could draw down 95% federal dollars, 2.5% state, and 2.5% local for that program?
that would be correct. If we had $300,000 to put into projects, we would actually be able to draw down about $11.4 million in federal funds.
Thank you.
Sure. Again, the federal funds added here, the 15,387, do not reflect new funds. That's just an adjustment to reflect what's estimated for the year. Going on down to the, and then we've talked about the $300K reduction in project administration. That will mean we cannot fully renew our contract administration when it comes due in June. We'll have to split it up into two pieces, but we certainly are willing to do that. We know times are hard, so we can manage that reduction there. In the rail program, we do have a transfer from transit. That's something we did request for $55,000. That provides us funds to do just minimal management and oversight of rail projects that are ongoing. As you get to the next page, page 85, we have a reduction in state motor fuel of about $8 million, a little bit over $8 million for the state highway system construct and improve special project. That reduction is necessary because the revenue estimate for state motor fuel was $860 million and actual audited collections were $852 million. As we go on down to the transit program, further on down the page, we had requested some funds for the multimodal passenger terminal, and we were directed to use other funds for that program. There's an increase here for about $11.3 million for federal funds. Again, that reflects estimated funds for federal. It's not new money. It's money we would have amended in as we got awards. The next adjustment is a reduction in funds of about $93,000 for operating expenses, and that will mean we will just trim down what we purchase, and will probably mean we keep a vacancy or two that we don't fill for a while. Next, we have, as I mentioned before, the transfer for freight rail planning that we did, moving from transit to freight rail. And then lastly, there is a reduction of about $177,000 for large urban transit systems that receive direct federal funding. That federal funding does not come through GDOT. It goes directly to the local agency. And that's going to be places like Savannah, Augusta, Columbus, as well as some transit systems here in Metro Atlanta. And we'll be glad to take any questions you have on the budget or anything else in the department.
Kate, how much money do you have in the Treasury right now as far as state motor fuel?
As far as state motor fuel, I've got a total in the Treasury. It's not of about according to my last cash balances in the Treasury, about $1.1 billion. However,
What date was that?
December 31st.
So you don't know what you've got up to this point. So
Not today. I mean, I can get an updated figure for you, but I don't have today's figure.
if you would, please.
Sure. And I'm sure you remember this, but that money is sitting there back in contracts we already have. So that's why it's there.
How much have you got outstanding right now in contract?
We've got well over $2 billion, and the other part that's back in those well over $2 billion is going to be accounts receivable from the federal government, where FHWA has approved projects, and we have accounts receivable. So we always have to have our assets equal to or greater than our liabilities.
Okay. Any other questions from the committee? Yeah, Chairman Roberts.
The by the constitutional amendment failing that would allow for multi-year contracts, what has that done to the department as far as moving forward?
Well, we really, at this point, are not able to move forward without either some statutory or constitutional relief. So we're kind of in that mode of not being able to move forward on that.
Anybody else have any questions? Okay, Kate. Thank you. We'll be back in touch. Gerald,
sure.
Yes, sir.
your turn. You gonna give us an update?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. You asked last week what had we let and what we have in the future. I think that's
Right.
what you're asking. And up to for the year, we're going to let in just regular program about $624 million.
For the rest of the year?
That's that's the total just in the regular program. For the rest of the year, we're about $300 million to go.
Okay.
In addition to that, we have another $287 million that the board approved through the motor fuel, the fund balance, that we had some excess motor fuel. Once we paid back, we got our reimbursements from the federal government. We had AC'd a lot of projects, and once we got our funds back, we were able to take that motor fuel off. That was another 287. In addition, we got probably about another $45 million that's in state aid to get us through September. So that's where we are right now. We're on schedule to deliver all of that. Just to give you some numbers, projected for May letting is 175. For June letting is 200. For April letting is 152. So those are the numbers that we're playing with.
So we're up more than we used to be, because in the past it'd been an average, what, 25 million?
July we did 34. August we did 41. September we did 50. October 29. November 41. December 30. January 57. February 30. March 30. April 60. So it's been up and down. But you have to understand, we only have, when you look at just the regular funds, we're doing $700 million divided by 12 months. So it's really not going to be $100 million lettings as we have been done in the past.
Okay. Chairman Davis has got a question for you here.
Gerald, how did we do on the stimulus dollars? I mean, we've already expended all of them.
We had to spend 50% of them by the 45 days after the stimulus was acted, and that was June 30th, 2009. But we had $924 million, and we've already expended all of those funds, so all of them are on the street.
Because there's a project in my district that's being funded through stimulus dollars that's not finished.
That's correct. We have to 2015 to complete construction on all the projects, or you have to. The money goes back, and you have to fund the rest of it with funds from the state. So it'll be completed by 2015. We didn't pick any projects that would put us in that jeopardy.
All right. And one follow-up, Mr. Chairman. The other project that we discussed briefly the other day, do we have a projected finish on design and all of that?
The I-75 project is part of the $200 million bond package that was approved, I guess, last session. We are expecting to go to let in January of 2011, and that'll be a 2-year project that opens the construction around 2013. It's a design build project, so it actually has some design work. A lot of work has to be done before you actually see shovels in the ground. So once we let it, we won't be going to construction right off the bat. Since it's a design build, they still have to do finish some environmental and do some design on the project.
Excellent. Thank you.
Gerald, I know when you talk about new construction, are you talking about paving as well, or are we talking about actual construction projects?
Paving and construction projects.
Okay. Most stimulus went to paving.
No, sir, it did not actually. We actually did 5 categories for the stimulus. We did bridge projects that we had ready. We spent about 7% of the money on bridges. We had the enhancements that we were required to do at 4%, so we met that requirement by the federal government. We did 28%, I think, off the top of my head, for asphalt paving. The biggest section was for capacity. We did about 34% in capacity. So
okay.
More, and then I think 16% for safety projects.
All right. During the budget hearings last week, you mentioned $40 million on a paving project down in
yes, Dooley County. That was one of the ones that we.
Is that on I-75?
I-75, yes, sir. It's a rehab project, replacing 3 lanes of asphalted concrete for about 11 to 12 miles. Yes,
okay.
sir.
Is that the old contract y'all did with Douglas Asphalt?
No, this is actually a section that's been in place for a considerable amount of time. I mean, 2 of the lanes were on the original 75 lanes.
Okay.
So no.
Are we through with all the Douglas Asphalt issue, or are y'all still trying to finish it up?
We have a contractor, Arches Western, is finishing them up. We're still in some litigation with them for some of the issues from a legal standpoint, but the contracts are almost complete.
You're in litigation with Archer Western?
We're in litigation with Douglas Asphalt.
Okay.
Not with Archer Western.
Okay.
We have just one section that's not complete yet. I think they said late summer, and we'll have them all done by then.
Okay. And that's taking how long now to finish all that?
Well, there were about 5 different sections. I would say we started in 2006, led most of those. We started with 85, 95, and 75, 2006, so approximately 5 years to get it all done.
That seems like it's been longer than that.
Well, everybody says we're always working on 75.
Okay. Because you had an issue on I-95 too with Douglas Asphalt, did you not?
Yes, we did. We had to go to the surety bond on that one also. But I-95, the last section was open November, I think, of 2010.
Okay.
And so it's all 3 lanes from the South Carolina to Florida border. Yes, sir.
Did you check on that bridge I mentioned to you on 283?
Yes, I did. Good news and bad news. Good news first.
Now, that's been about 10 years, I know.
Well, it's actually could be ready to let this December. The bridge, the plans are almost finished. The right-of-way, they're doing appraisals right now to buy the right-of-way. It's 8 parcels. The issue comes down, we don't have the money to fund it right now.
Wasn't it $5.5 million originally, the estimate? Because I went to that pre-hearing and everything you had, and
7.1.
Oh, it's gone up.
7.1 construction. It's actually in 2016 right now. That's where it's funded at, but it'll be ready December 2011.
Okay. All right. Have you got a listing for me?
Yes,
You're
I
gonna
do.
hand it to me? Okay.
I do.
All right. Very good. Appreciate that. Todd, do you want to say anything? You want to talk about 277 any? Why don't you come up here and talk about it?
All right. Well, House Bill 277, I guess that's what you want me to talk about a little bit. We finished the first, phase of that process was to go through the first round of roundtable meetings. We've had 12 roundtable meetings. We finished our last one Thursday evening down in Heart of Georgia. Each of the 12 roundtables has elected an executive committee, which is required under the bill, a 5-member executive committee. And they've also adopted criteria which will steer them in the direction of what types of products they'll choose for their list. And that was successfully done as well. So that's kind of phase 1 of the process. Phase 2 now is we're in this period of about 4 months where we're going to be soliciting project suggestions from local jurisdictions. And then this summer, that executive committee working hand in hand with myself and my office will develop that constrained list of products that ultimately a roundtable will have to vote on up or down by October 15th of this fall. And that's kind of the date. Once the October 15th comes and we do have a successful list of products, that's when the campaigning for the regional sales tax will start with the ultimate vote in summer of 2012.
Any questions for Todd? this is probably one of the most important things we've done. Do you have anything, Mr. Leader? Okay. Of course, Todd, my concern is the area I'm in. I think it's going to be an uphill battle anyway to get it resolved. But I know the meetings you and I have attended, you've done an excellent job. So
Thank you.
but you got to keep doing an excellent job to sell the product. And
Yeah, it's been pretty positive. I know Representative Roberts and I spoke at Mayor's Day Conference yesterday, and we've gone to a lot of these communities, and a lot of the folks that were really against the bill and against provisions in it have actually turned the corner a little bit and starting to say, let's get it done, let's work together. It happened everywhere, but certainly I think a lot more as the days pass, people are coming around and realizing that this is the plan of action, and this is the direction we're going. Are you going to get on board or not? And we're seeing some positive turns.
are you going? I've told the mayors and commissioners in the area we will not tweak the bill. Is it going? Does it need to be tweaked at all until we get to this point?
We're working with what we have from last session, and I've read the bill probably as much as anybody, and I certainly feel like the parameters that are laid out within the bill we can work around and get it done.
The governor doesn't want to tweak it, does he?
He hasn't told me if he wanted to tweak it. I don't think he does, though.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thank y'all. We'll see you around the next time. Let's see who else. Stan Wise, PSC.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Stan Wise. I'm joined today by our newest commissioner, Tim Eccles, our executive director, Deborah Flanagan, our budget officer, Terry Pritchett, and our public information officer, Bill Edge. Members of the committee, we're facing the amended budget for 2011 of an 8.1% cut to under House Bill 948. This will result in a total reduction of 11.3 from in fiscal year 11, and compared to last year's actual state funding. Since 2008, the Commission has taken cuts of over 22%, or $2.2 million. We've gotten there with a policy of leaving vacant positions open as longtime employees retire from state service. We currently have a 20% vacancy rate at the Commission, primarily in our utility regulation, and we've cut all but essential travel and replacement of equipment purchases. On the tracking sheet, we just got a couple of items to get us through, and the one is the $216,000 in the Commission Administration Program funding. Again, we've absorbed this through retirement and resignations. Our facility protection group, you'll notice only a cut of $146. And again, that's the recognition of the fact that for every dollar spent, we receive federal reimbursements. And it is a vital part of our agency as we talk about pipeline safety and the job that this very efficient and capable group does. That's 80% funding, by the way, from the federales. The biggest cut comes from utility regulation. That net cut on the tracking sheet shows $474,000, again, primarily taken in personal services. In utilities, I mentioned that we have we've got a number of vacant positions open, 17 in the agency, primarily in utilities regulation, of which that number is 14. It is significant that we've taken these cuts. We haven't taken to having to borrow pencils or to beg for them, but these cuts have been significant and continue to really strain our agency. We are concerned as we go forward. This 11 budget we can deal with. We've gotten there, we think. But from this point on, and I know we're not here to talk about 12, but it concerns us greatly. The Commission's got a number of things on its plate. You'll notice in the handout that we continue to monitor the construction at Vogel 1 and 2, or 3 and 4. That is a significant part of what we're doing. We don't have rate cases this year as we did in 10, but the workload at the commission remains high, and doing it with a very much diminished utilities regulation staff. Like I say, we've got a significant handout that we've given you today. That's the highlight of the cuts, as you see on the tracking sheet, and I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions? I guess, Stan, you're the chairman?
Yes, sir.
For what, 2 years?
No, sir, it's still 1 year.
1 year?
Yes,
okay.
sir.
All right. Tim, you want to say anything since you're here? Why don't you come use a mic since we're...
I know I'm heading up our committee on transportation, which includes limousines, charter buses, moving companies, wrecker services. We have one staff member, and we are not enforcing. We're unable to enforce, our the job that we need to be doing around the state, and we're, got volunteers coming in to try to help us, and this is just one of the areas where we really need some help over there. So I know everybody's working hard. I know it's a tough situation for all agencies, but the commission, having just come off the campaign trail, folks just don't understand what it is and the importance of it and the impact that it has on just about every single person in the state. And we need as much help as we can get to do the job that we need to do for our citizens. Thank you, sir.
Question. I noticed, Stan, you probably need to answer this. Something about towers, some kind of regulation. Y'all oversee towers. It's in the big, what? Non-consensual towers. What is that? Towing?
Towing. Oh,
it said towers in the book.
I hope not.
It does.
Okay.
It does say towers.
Yeah, well, it's towing.
Okay.
And there's some issues that have been raised primarily by the General Assembly about towing and what impact that we would have on non-consensual towing.
Okay. Bill, you need a typo in that. Well, I know what towers are, but it says towers in the book, in the big budget.
We'll check that.
Okay. Good. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, economic development. Towers is spelled T-O-W-E-R-S, and that's what's in the big book. How do you spell towers? Towers. I guess the way.
T-O-W-E-R-S.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Okay. Okay, John.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the time. The Commissioner gives his regards. He's sorry, but he's been inundated with a lot of meetings, and he had a very important meeting scheduled today for a while there, and he just couldn't get out of it. So he asked if I'd come on his stead and mention our 11 budget and answer any questions that you may have. As you all know, we're the Department of Economic Development. We are the sales and marketing arm for the state of Georgia. We're basically broken out in three main divisions. The main division is the global commerce, and global commerce goes around the world and tries to sell Georgia on investment and jobs, bringing jobs to the state. Within the global commerce division, if you look at our budget, we've wrapped in the business recruitment, international trade, the innovation and technology, and a small business. You'll see those separate programs in our budget, but that's all part of global commerce going forward. Next area is the tourism division, and that tries to bring tourists to the state of Georgia, and we always like to say each and every one of us here are tourists within the state of Georgia and want to keep you in the state of Georgia. And the last piece is the entertainment industry. Most people are looking at the films and the things like that. And the film incentive back in 2008 has been a huge success as far as business that's coming to the state. The number of productions and investment in the state has quadrupled in the last 2 years.
John, let me, for my own information, tell us how the tax credits work. For the
film?
Yeah.
Okay, on the film tax credits, you have to have a minimum investment of $500,000, and it's a 20% tax credit on the dollars that are spent in Georgia, only in Georgia. And then there's an additional 10% incentive if you add the Georgia logo at the end of the film during the credits and things like that. So it's up to a 30%
When you say
tax
spend,
credit.
you're talking about lodging?
No. This is, well, yes, it's salaries, and they also put a limit on that, but for salaries that you put, rental equipment, things like that, all that goes into the budget. They lay out an actual budget before we qualify them, and our department actually qualifies the credit. And then what happens is they have to actually file a return, and they have up to 5 years to use that credit, and the credit is transferable, and that goes to the Department of Revenue. So we don't actually see the actual tax credit that's taken. We just qualify it up front, that in fact, this is in fact what their budget is. It meets all the qualifications of the bill, and then we sign off on a document and send that to them. Then they have to submit that with their tax returns to the Department of Revenue.
Okay. Got a question here from Chairman Roberts.
I asked the commissioner the other day, and I don't know if y'all had time to get back to it. Have y'all been able to calculate at this point what is the impact on the local side of this tax credit? I mean, what kind of revenue are we seeing, say over around Savannah and other areas of the state where they have went in? I mean, what's the economic impact in those local communities?
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Actually, we're having a study conducted right now. And actually, it's a study free, and I believe it's NBC Universal is actually paying for the study for us. And we're actually choosing a community within Georgia, and they're doing a study to see how it impacts the local community. And we're hoping to have that within about 2 weeks. And by the way, Elmer Stencil is here today. He's our governmental affairs person. He's with me today at the committee hearing. So hopefully by the end of the month, we should know exactly from this study what some of the local economic impact is. But,
Chairman Dave's got a question for you.
Okay.
Now, is the credit for individual films, or is there actual credit for like investment into a studio here?
Film
So it's-
production. It's not for building like the Screen Gems and things like that that's going in now. That's not part of this credit.
But when they make that investment, they create a studio or something here. They can, each film that they produce, they can get this credit.
Well,
and-
then production crews would come and use those studios to film. Yeah. So I mean, if that doesn't tell you how successful the tax credit is, that the business, the lighting industries and things like that, the studios, they're starting to build in Georgia, and they're creating daily jobs now for people looking to the future, that they know that the film industry is continue to come to Georgia. And they're going to use and rent out their space to do their films and productions.
And I'm sorry, I'm trying to remember the bill when it came through a couple years back. But is it? There's no sunset on this, right? This is open ended for.
I believe that there's no sunset on it.
Excellent. Thank you.
Go ahead, John.
Okay. So those are the three main divisions of our budget. Overall, since 2009, our overall budget has been cut 31%. So we have, taken our fair share of cuts along there. We're more than happy to help out and be a team player, but we have taken a 31% cut in our budget. And like I said earlier, we're the sales and marketing arm of the state, so our budget is mainly made up of marketing and personal services. That makes up about 83 to 85% of our budget, depending on the year. Our marketing budget now over the last 3 years has been cut 51%, and our personal services, which is people, has been cut 18%. We've gone from 208 budgeted positions to 173. So we're doing a lot more. We're still staying busy. The numbers are still good in the pipeline. This year, day-to-day average from last year for the first 5-6 months to this year, the numbers are still good. We're up in business recruitment. In jobs, we're up 20%, and investment, we're up 29% over the same period from 10 to 11. So things are still doing good. Projects are still in the pipeline. So we're doing everything we can. In tourism, nationally, the room revenue is up from what it is nationally. I believe the room revenue nationally is 7.2, and we're at 7.6. And occupancy is 5.7. We're at 6.9%. So we're doing good overall as a state. And then the film is just, it's just really gangbusters right now. There's a lot of projects coming in. There's a lot going on. And like I said, with the new additions of the industry itself building out like screen gyms and things like that, it's providing jobs on a regular basis now. I'd be glad to answer any questions you may have. The 11 budget, the amended budget, we've been asked to cut at the 4%, about $1.1 million. We're taking that in marketing from the tourism division and the global commerce division, about $550,000. You can see it in the tracking documents. I think $547,325. Taking that out of marketing this year.
John, what's the name of the building y'all lease? Where you're looking? Where your lease?
Centergy?
Yeah.
Centergy building.
You got 2 floors?
We are now on 3.
3?
Yes. And
have y'all expanded to 3?
Yes, sir. When we had the small business mentor protege program come over to us from DOS, we did more office space.
What came over?
The small business mentor protege came over from the Department of Administrative Services back in 2006.
What is that?
The mentor protege program is a program that we get with some of the bigger businesses like UPS, Coca-Cola, and things like that, and they act as a mentor. And we have small businesses around the state, and they come to different meetings and things like that, and they learn best practices. And it's been a very successful program. That came over to us with the small business program. Part of the small business program was a matching program and kind of educating small business of the different things from a procurement standpoint and other things that the state had to offer, and how to do business with the state, how to work with state government, and things of that nature. So that program came over to the department in 2006.
What are y'all paying per square foot?
$20.31.
Is that inclusive of everything?
The average is about $22 because when they came over, I couldn't get the same deal that I got initially when we moved from 285 Peachtree.
Okay.
And
so how much square footage have you got now?
We have about 36,500 over there.
So you're paying $650,000 a year in rent?
Just north of that, yes,
okay.
sir.
And that's net of everything?
Yes.
Okay. No common areas, no nothing else you had to pay?
Well, that's all built in, yes,
okay.
with that. And then we have offices in China, Japan, and Germany as well, where we have leases.
Okay. Parking deck, is it doing okay now?
Yep, it's been standing now for a year and a half, no problems.
Okay.
I think it's probably the safest parking deck in Atlanta now.
Do you think about it every time you drive into it?
Actually, no.
You do not?
I don't. But it was a shame. I mean, it was a lot of destruction there, but I don't pay much attention to it.
Okay, good. Any other questions?
I have one.
What number are you? Okay.
In the light of the film and other industries, one of the things that has come up is, especially in dealing with, now that we're becoming more of a hub, especially in the film, music, other industries, do you get any indication from the folks who are coming here dealing with the issue of agents, talent agents, other things, dealing with the performers and actors, musicians stuff? Is that something that y'all have hit or has come up as in any discussions with the film or groups coming in?
I don't believe so. I mean, they bring their own talent in. They have a lot of people in Georgia here as well that fill in and stuff like that. But, I mean, the main leads are coming in from wherever.
Exactly.
And then we use, local people all the time. I think it was about a month and a half ago, there was actually a calling. I can't remember where, but I think it was like 50,000 people showed up or somewhere. They were looking for extras to make a crowd scene. And so people just showed up and mulled around.
John, one of the committee members wanted to know where you were from.
North.
Boston?
Jersey.
Jersey, okay.
Yep.
Good. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, how about Greta? Greta's here, I think. Janae.
Thank you, Chairman and Subcommittee, for inviting us to speak today. My name is Janine Miller. I'm the Executive Director of Greta. With me here also is Jim Ritchie. He is the chief operator over the Express service, which we'll talk about. And also Matt Markham is here with us. He's our government affairs chief as well. Matt has just handed out a PowerPoint to you. I realize that the docket today is long and the time is short, so I will be as brief as I can. What I do want to present to you, though, is the information that's here, even if we don't talk about it at length, so that it's available for your consideration. So on the first slide, there has been a lot of work that's gone on transportation in the past few years, as I'm sure most of you know. So I wanted to make sure that you all understand where Greta fits into that bigger picture. First of all, we see as our most important role is in the economic development of the state of Georgia, but particularly Metro Atlanta. And that's why I think it's appropriate that we're actually submitting our budget request through you all, because all that we do in transportation at Greta is around economic development. So our role is ensuring the positive return on investment, which is enacting the strategic plan in transportation investments in Metro Atlanta, providing the express commuter service and actually van pool service. We do a complete outsourcing of van pool for Metro Atlanta. We coordinate with our partner agencies on that. And the third bullet there is around what's going to be coming if there is any transit projects in the regional sales tax list, and if the voters approve that, Greta will manage those projects. In addition, we also have a legislative mandate to provide coordination recommendations on rural and human services transit, as I'm sure you remember, Chairman. So here is the strategic transportation path for your reference around what we're doing in the state in transportation investments. You'll see here where we started with this thing called IT3. This was about 2.5 years ago under Governor Perdue. He said there's got to be a better way to get a return on our transportation investment. $2 billion spend in the state every year, $1 billion of it in Metro Atlanta. So let's see the business case for this investment and for more investment. This was the proof positive that if you invest more in transportation, you get tremendous economic benefits. We're about 20 years behind the curve. That's what this showed. But if we bring our investment on transportation infrastructure, really strategic investments, we can around 45 to 50 billion over 30 years. We can generate 340,000 new jobs and 180 billion in GDP. This became a compelling case for Senate Bill 200, which resulted in the Director of Planning position and a legislative mandate to do a strategic plan, which is the SSTP, Statewide Strategic Transportation Plan. That's the official state plan for the state of Georgia that Director of Planning uses to guide all of the decisions that he makes around, the $2 billion spend in transportation every year. This became also the compelling case. We realized that our investment per capita is less than any state except for Tennessee. So this is economic outcomes and became the impetus for what was House Bill 277, the sales tax bill. This resources the strategy. And what we're doing now at Greta is working hand in glove with the Director of Planning on a performance management system to make sure that that's executed. It's a high-level view. On the next slide is simply a rundown of our budget line items in Governor Deal's budget. The thing I would like to highlight here is twofold. One is the enhancement request that's the $5.781 million, and I want to present that business case to you here. But also is the cut that you see in the 255. That's a 10% cut that will sustain in 2011, and that'll carry forward also to 2012. That is for staff that manages our engineering projects. We've been able to find a way to, with the federal government's approval, to shift those workers over to federal grant support. So that 10% cut this year is on top of a 26% cut we sustained last year. Moving on to slide 5 quickly, you can see here what we see as the benefits of Express. There was an initial infusion of $21 million of county funds, and that has leveraged over $100 million in total federal funds. And that initial investment was supposed to last 3 years through some very good management and very impressive service that customers love, and through leveraging federal funds, we've been able to make that last 7 years, and Jim is a big part of that. in terms of cost effectiveness, I want you all to understand how low the subsidy is required for this service. And we're going to get to a slide here that's going to show you comparable systems, but we are as effective and cost efficient as you can possibly be. Moving on to slide 6, we again talking about the strategic plan. Express turns out to be one of the top performing and absolutely impactful things that we do and should do in the coming 20 to 30 years for providing reliable commutes, access to workers, to skilled workers. That's one of the main things that drove our work in the strategic plan, is talking to business corporations and their consultants, trying to figure out what is Atlanta, why is Atlanta not doing so well in attracting jobs? What's going on here in Georgia that they don't want to come here? And they said transportation, we don't have access to workers in a reliable commute shed. That's what Express does, is it improves that currently and going forward. On slide 7, just want to show you the scan of all of the counties that we serve. You can see this pie chart is relatively evenly distributed throughout the 12 counties that we serve, and then that other block there, the pink-colored one at the 11 o'clock, those are the other, I say other counties. The reason we call them others because they didn't initially contribute, though they have citizens who come into the park and ride lots and ride the service. This allows me to draw your attention now to the Express map, which is the other document that was presented to you. What I think is important about this is you can see how far out we pick up folks and bring them into job centers in downtown, midtown, and the perimeter area. We've got 2.1 million boardings a year, and we carry 50 million passenger miles. And our customers love our service. On the next slide, you can just about talk to anybody. 90% of them say it's really good or they love it. It's the kind of creature comforts that you would want for your commute, and it also provides a tremendously reliable and stress-free commute. That is, I think, why we've gotten a lot of positive support also from some positive press in Forbes magazine and the Urban Mobility Report, which we can talk about that if you'd like to, but that's a national report that comes out. What I want you to see here in this bar chart is that peak in 2008. That peak in ridership that happened in 2008 was when gas was $4 a gallon. And all
Janine, let me stop you.
Yes, sir.
How many people did y'all survey? How many riders did y'all survey?
It was a 100% survey of all.
100%.
Every rider we talk with to make sure.
How many is that?
It's around in a particular day it was about 4,500.
4,500. Okay.
And we're anticipating that gas price to spike again in the spring and summer, so we're anticipating having to deal with that again. During that peak, we had 300 trips each month that had standees on it, people who weren't able to find a seat because the service was so crowded. And we're talking about a 24-mile average trip. So folks were standing for 24 miles on about 30 trips a month during that peak. So what we've got then on the next slide, just a benchmark comparison. You can see the subsidy per passenger miles is 17 cents, which is the lowest amongst our peers, which you can see there from other places in D.C. And Charlotte and the like. What I want you to what I would also like to highlight is that we've taken a lot of actions already to sustain Express. We've cut staff at Greta. We've cut staff at our private contractor. Some of you may or may not know that we actually do public-private partnership to provide this service. It's not state employees who drive the bus and maintain them. It's a private sector contractor who competes competitively on a competitive basis to earn the service at a low cost and a high quality. So we've forced down some changes there at our contractor to send a lot of their workers from full-time to part-time. And in the past year, we've also eliminated underperforming trips, as in buses that aren't full. We've cut them, and we've also had a fare increase in the last 5-6 months. So we are doing everything we can. That's above the line. Below the dark line is what we are proposing to do, which is to forego 2012 bonds that would have debt service in 2012 and for another 28 years. These were 2010 bonds. Those cuts equal about $1.8 million per year for another 28 years. So we're saving the state in those dollars and hoping to recapture a very small portion of those to sustain this in a very short-term gap. This is a one-time gap funding. At this point in time, that's all that we're asking for, which is why it's in the amended budget.
Janine,
Yes,
Chairman
sir.
Roberts has a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Janine, you said that y'all had a fare increase.
Yes, sir.
How much?
We had never had a fare increase in Express's history since we started up around 2003. $3 a fare, no matter where you come from, you pay $3 to ride. And some discounts if you get a multi-ride pass or whatnot, but $3 was the fare for one way. What we've increased is the folks who are coming from the farthest out distance. So we have a distance-based fare. Basically, the more you use, the more you pay. So the base fare for inside the 25-mile loop is still $3, but outside is where we're asking them to pay $4. And our ridership's doing quite well, even with that fare increase for those distances, because of the value that we provide to the customers.
And that $3 is one way, so $6 a day.
That's right.
Thank you.
That's right. The thing that I love about the work that we do at Greta, but particularly with Express, is that we touch Georgians every day. We're with them twice a day, providing a service that they rely on, and we're very in touch and very responsive to our customers' needs, both on the short-term and long-term basis. So I wanted to close out with what's at stake. That this $5.8 million of state general funds during this short term, this gap funding for the amended budget, will leverage nearly $5 million in passenger revenues and $3 million in federal grants. So for every mile that's rolling, we're earning passenger revenues and federal grants to support that. You cut the state funds, the buses don't roll. We don't bring in those passenger fares or federal monies. If Express were cut, we'd add as many as 50 million vehicle miles back on the interstate. That's the equivalent of 2.5 lanes of infrastructure at our choke points. So if you can imagine the construction cost of adding 1 to 2 lanes, it's nearly unimaginable. But at Spaghetti Junction or the downtown connector, that's the equivalent of the trips that we provide through those choke points. We have potentially $39.5 million on the table that if we do not fully support Express in this gap funding year, we have to turn back in to Washington, D.C., and they are no longer available to Georgia. And that's for the explicit Hot Lanes grant that we received. Then the $30 million going forward is, like I said, every mile that we roll, we bring in federal funds. If those miles aren't rolling, that's an extra $30 million that we would lose on the day-to-day generating of federal money. And then finally, if we do actually have to shut down a service, we have to pay back the federal government to the tune of $100+ million, which we would do by liquidating assets, our buses and our stations, the lots at our stations, the land there, and that would probably end up netting an appropriation that was necessary from the General Assembly to do so, but we're not precise about what that cost would be at this point. To leave you with a visual, I think, is important, which is the last slide. It shows pretty clearly how many cars are taken off the road in the downtown connector when you bring 57 cars. We carry 57 folks per bus. So you get those cars off the road, and that's what virtual capacity looks like there.
Janine,
Thank you, Chairman.
How'd y'all do that picture? Surely y'all didn't stand out in the middle of the... Did y'all transpose
No, sir.
the picture?
That was actually brought to us by the Clean Air Campaign. I think they have some Photoshop wizards over there.
Okay. Chairman Davis has a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Janine, congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
I kind of liked your benchmark comparison showing the subsidy per passenger mile for the buses versus the commuter rail.
Mm-hmm.
That was of particular interest to me. But the $5.8 million.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've been told, I mean, I have some of the area that uses this service the heaviest.
Indeed.
I've been told that the funding, the CMAQ funding, has run out.
That's correct.
Into the FY12 budget. This is a one-time fund of $5.8 million, but I'm not showing it in the FY12 budget. How are you going to make that up over time?
This FY11 ask is not for the current fiscal year. It's for fiscal 12. So it will. It's an infusion now because we're an authority. We can hold on to the dollars and use them through fiscal 12. So that's one clarifying point. Beyond fiscal 12 our hope is that express service will be on the regional sales tax list, and that the voters would approve it. In fact, that having Greta on that regional sales tax list may help bring in extra dollars, help the general public see, if I don't pay for this service with the sales tax, it could go away. So that is the goal there, and it is a big bet. If for some reason that does not pass with the voters, we will, as a state and as a region, have to have a very important policy discussion. But we will be going to the counties to talk about that in the course of the next 6 months.
So you're expecting 277, the regional roundtable, to include funding for this? Well,
we're asking for it. We are asking for it.
And what I was getting at with this is, first of all, your lines go out into multiple regions.
They do.
Second of all, my understanding was that the regional sales tax could not fund the maintenance and operation of existing transit operation.
That's a good question. It cannot provide operating for existing MARTA. Any other existing transit it can support.
You're making my day today, I tell you. The last thing, going back to rail. There's a lot of talk about commuter rail being implemented. We have lines that are, hopefully not, but the lines running adjacent to the existing bus routes. Have you looked at the impact to the implementation of a rail line on the same exact line that the express bus is running?
I don't think we have done that analysis. That's a good deal forward thinking, since a lot of the commuter rail projects are so far out into the distance, and it would take a lot of assumptions and guesses to do that, both in economics and ridership projections, growth in the area and the like. We have not done that, though.
Excellent. And one last one, if I could, Mr. Chairman. The cut on the annual debt service on the construction of the park and ride lots. Do you have a list of those lots that are being cut?
What we've actually done is been able to provide these same park and ride lots, but with an earlier bond issuance. So the dollars for this 2010 issuance are no longer necessary for our planned expansion right now. Is that?
So are we going to add additional Greta stops if we fund you this $5.8 million?
No, sir. No, sir. This is to support what's out there right now. There are no additional that this would support. This is what's currently rolling right now would keep it rolling.
Excellent. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for being
Thank you,
here.
Chairman.
Okay. Let's do forestry. Robert probably needs to get back to Macon, don't you, Robert?
Absolutely.
Okay. About Brent.
Thank you, and good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and committee members. I'm Robert Ferris, the State Forester and Director of the Georgia Forestry Commission. And for the new members, the vision of the Georgia Forestry Commission is to ensure that Georgia maintains those healthy, sustainable forests, providing clean air, clean water, and abundant forest products for generations to come. And jobs as well, I should add. You heard Commissioner Black say agriculture was the #1 industry in the state. Forestry is the second largest industry in the state. The Georgia Forestry Commission had the unique opportunity to be in the midst of our strategic planning process when OPB gave us the directives on budget reductions this past summer. As such, we were able to work with our entire leadership team, our personnel throughout the field, and also extensive numbers of external stakeholders in looking at our overall organizational structure and delivery of critical services. So if it suits the chairman, I'd like to provide a high-level overview with the handouts that you have in front of you. The very first page, the points I'd like to make off of that, it provides a lot of information this committee always asks for, so we figured we'd get ahead of the game and go ahead and give it to you. But in a nutshell, the Forestry Commission is looking at a 31% cut from where we started in FY9. And in real dollars, 43% fewer real dollars than we had a decade ago. Second page, we're providing you with some regular operating projections. For those of you that watch the Weather Channel, you may know that they're projecting a La Nina weather system this year, which means hotter, drier weather, typically, and that means more fires. And indeed, this is shown in our fire numbers for this fiscal year. For FY11, our fire numbers are up 37% over the 5-year average. Our acres burned are up 61% over our 5-year average. And what that graph is showing is projecting somewhere around $1 million shortfall in regular operating if we have a moderate or better fire season, which it appears we will be heading into. And additionally, into regular operating funds, we found out last week that we're now required to license our short band radios as we move into the new short band requirements, federal requirements, which we're projecting will cost us around $200,000 in FY12. The next page, I'd mentioned we've restructured our entire organization. It shows how we've changed our district organization. We've gone from 12 districts down to 10 districts, and here in FY11 and FY12, we're reducing to 6 districts in the state and reducing positions in those district operations as well, and demoting some of our senior managers back into fire responsibilities. The next page shows where we're regionalizing our fire response offices. We've closed 17 of our offices, creating regional work centers, and the map is showing an additional 7 offices, fire control response units, that we will be closing in FY11. The next page demonstrates our equipment and vehicle budget status. I know we're not talking about bonds today, but I did include this regarding vehicle and crawler tractor, fire suppression tractor reductions that we have proposed for FY11. And if you'd like, Mr. Chairman, I can hit the highlights of the budget lines. It's tracking document page 43. In the admin program, we're eliminating 5 positions. Those include janitor's positions, training staff, our statewide GIS coordinator, and also an accounting clerk. In a nutshell, what we're doing is asking the remaining folks in the admin department to wear more hats. Instead of wearing 2, to wear 3. We're reducing regular operating expenses, line item 25.1.2, by extending the replacement time on our IT equipment and computers. This ultimately will result in 1/2 of our computers being unsupported. Line item 1.3, workers' comp premium. We've been advised that our premium should be reduced, although we haven't seen that reduction yet from DUAS. Line item 1.4, reduction in telecommunications expenses. Again, our expenses are supposed to be reduced there, but I will say we have not seen those reductions in telecom communications over the past years where we've taken cuts in telecommunications. Those 2 items hold true throughout the forest management and forest protection program areas. Under forest management, line 2.1, we're transferring 2 state-funded positions over to federally funded positions. Line item 2.2, we're eliminating 7 positions. We're eliminating our forest manager down at Dixon Forest, 36,000 acres of forest land, asking the district to pick up those responsibilities. We've riffed our 3 education forest coordinators located at Augusta, Milledgeville, and Dawsonville. So we'll be reducing our outreach programs there. Eliminated 2 sustainable community forester positions and eliminated a forest health coordinator, totaling 7 forester positions. Skipping down to reducing regular operating expenses and management, we're working with sister state agencies to manage their timberlands and sell their timberlands, and are projecting $50,000 in increased revenue through that process. Under the forest protection item category, under 3.1, we're reducing regular operating expenses, cutting our uniform issues in half. Also reducing vehicles and fire control crawler tractors. 24 crawler tractors will be eliminating. Personal services, we're eliminating 4 positions.
Hey, Robert, talking about the crawler tractors, it's not one of those that's got those cabs on it, does it?
No, sir. We're
Okay.
retaining the new environmental cab tractors. These will be our older pieces of equipment and, in all honesty, equipment that we no longer have operators for with all of the cuts being projected.
How many of those environmental cabs do y'all have now as far as on tractors? Just a guess.
40 to 50.
Okay.
We've made some good headway with that.
Okay,
of
good.
course, we've got 332 pieces of equipment, so we've got a ways to go. But as we stated several years ago, it'll take about a decade to get there.
I'm sure if you need a driver, Representative Hanner would drive one of them if he needed to, wouldn't you? But, okay.
He's probably worked one or two before in his past. And I might add, as a point to that, with the reduction in firefighting crawlers, back in the 90s, we had 169 industry tractors that were outfitted with fire plows to assist us with fire control, and today we have 12. So in addition to the reduction in industry tractors, we'll see a reduction in state fire control tractors out there as well. In cutting positions, 3.2, we're eliminating 4 positions, and those are within our communications department.
Okay, we got a question here from Representative Ellis Black.
In connection with those crawlers, have you got any information on the, I'm going to call it the decline in the amount of fire control burning and practices that people are doing that would enhance the safety, the less severity of a fire if it did get out?
Well, we're very active through our fire prevention program and forest management programs in promoting prescribed burning. We prescribe burn a little over 1 million acres a year now in the state. Out of our 24 million acres of forest, we prescribe burn about 1 million, a little over 1 million. And that number has remained pretty consistent over the past few years here. We did see a big drop when forest industry stopped prescribed burning for the most part, but private landowners have picked that up through aggressive efforts on the Forestry Commission and a lot of our partners.
You're saying that the acres that you have participated in pretty well remain constant?
Total acres burned in the state have remained pretty constant, a little over 1 million acres. And the acres that we participate in has actually increased somewhat over the past few years.
Okay. Robert, I was going to ask you something. When you use the Georgia Aviation Authority, where do you put it? As far as, is that forest protection?
No, sir. Those dollars are not reflected in our budget. Last year, we transferred $1.6 million over to the Georgia Aviation Authority, and in return, we were guaranteed X number of hours for our air operations.
How many hours?
Right at 6,000.
That's a good deal then, wasn't it?
Yes, sir. Our operations with GAA have been very positive to this point, and we've seen savings across the state. We actually have better access to rotary wing aircraft now than what we had before, and they're stationed throughout the state, so seeing better response times with the fire buckets.
So you are pleased with it, is what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
To date. We've been operating there a little over a year with GAA, and this past fire season was our lowest fire season in history. So we haven't been tested with this La Nina weather system that we're seeing coming up, but I feel good about where we stand and how that's operating.
Being a forester, do you think it's global warming is causing all this?
I think there is a lot of evidence regarding climate change, and certainly indisputable evidence about additional CO2 in the atmosphere. So I'm not a scientist, but I do think we are going to be seeing some climate change.
So the answer to the question would be yes then, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You can go ahead.
Okay, on the positions eliminated, I mentioned communications in our fire prevention program. We've also cutting a position in our rural fire defense program, 2 chief rangers, and several other positions that are moving over to federal funds. Line item number 3.5 illustrates the savings from reducing our number of districts, and again eliminating a district manager and 2 associate district managers. In line item 3.6 is where we're again moving a couple of our fire investigator and a chief ranger over to federal funds, which we do have some question on sustainability of utilizing and moving those state positions over to federal, but we feel that's our best option at this time. Under tree seedling nursery and tree improvement program, no changes there since the state does not contribute any funds to our nursery or tree improvement program. Nutshell, we've taken some bold steps requiring all of our foresters and rangers to become fire control trained and qualified. We've reduced our number of offices across the state, and I'm confident that the plan we've formed and the proposal that you're looking at puts the Forestry Commission in a solid position to continue moving forward. It's going to be different, but it will be manageable. Our response times are going to increase. Fire sizes are going to increase. A lot of services were eliminated, and a lot of other services look completely different than they have in the years past. But we recognize and accept the new economic reality that's facing our state. And our strategic plan, and by default, our budget reduction proposal, does reflect our ability to operate within this new reality. Thank you for your time. And
Got a question here from Representative Hunter.
Line on forest protection, 25.3.2, reduce funds, personal services reflected projected expenditures, and eliminate 4 positions. Where are those 4 positions?
One is at the central office, the communications position. Yeah. That will leave us with 2 people in our communications program. One is at our rural fire defense shop in Macon, where we're going to discontinue the production of front mount pumpers for rural fire departments. We've got a chief ranger vacancy in Early County, where we're expanding the span of control, combining county units, and then also we're eliminating our Helping Hands program, where we provide PPE or personal protective equipment to rural fire departments.
Okay, explain the rural bumpers to me.
The front mount pumpers.
Bumpers. I meant bumpers. I mean bumpers.
Through our rural fire defense program, we work with counties to primarily economically challenged counties to help.
I know what they are.
To provide fire control units out there. Yeah. With our front mount pumpers, it's basically a fire truck that can pump and roll. And we are not going to be making those trucks anymore, but we will continue to provide fire knockers, water tenders that move water about.
Where does that put these folks? I meant, what kind of damage does that do to these small counties? I mean,
well, it's going to position them where they will have to go externally through private contractors to procure that equipment.
Those poor economically deprived counties. Yeah.
Yes, sir. We just simply do not have the funding to continue that program or the resources.
Any other questions about anybody? I was going to ask you about your tires. You when I was head of this subcommittee several years ago, are you still using retreads on those trucks that haul the crawlers? Or are y'all putting new tires on them now?
We have not had any issues with tires, and since you were chair of this committee.
So you're still using retreads on them?
I believe we've gone to primarily new. I'll have to get that information on driving axles, new, and then still utilize some retreads. But we've not had any problems, as I said, in, gosh, I guess 3 years now, regarding issues with those tires blowing out.
Okay. I was going to ask you about the unit closures. Why would you close the unit closure in Towns County? You feel like the adjoining county can protect that area?
Yes, sir. We went through literally months of work looking at these units, and large extent looking at fire history, looking at fire stations within the area, looking at response times, and based all of our decisions on a lot of detailed information. And those
well, up there is owned mainly by the U.S. government anyway, isn't that correct?
Yes, sir. A tremendous amount of the acreage up in Towns and Raven County are federally owned.
Okay.
Be glad to get that information to you on any specific closures, because believe me, we've met with a lot of county commissioners concerned about office closures, and we're able to demonstrate to those commissioners the response.
I assume the U.S. Forestry, they have their own ways of protecting themselves, do they not?
We have mutual agreements with federal and private lands.
So they still pay you to do it if needed to be, if it's on
responses that extend beyond initial attack, 24-hour initial attack.
And they still reimburse you if it's on their U.S. Forest Service, right?
Yes, sir. If we work the fire beyond 24 hours, we do not charge for initial attack responses, and likewise they assist us.
Okay. Representative Ellis Black has.
Back to these front-mounted pumper units. Not most of these units in the hands of volunteer fire departments in these rural areas.
Absolutely, vast majority.
Have you got any figures as to the percentage of these small grass fires and type things like that these volunteer units are the first responders to?
Yes, sir. We do have those records. I don't have the number in front of me, but I can get that for you.
If I was to have to say right off the top of my head that my suspicion is that the overwhelming majority of the time these are the guys that's the first ones there that keep these things from ever getting any bigger.
On roadside fires, yes, sir. Frequently they are the first to respond.
Yeah.
All right, Robert, thank you. Brent, once you come on up, we'll get you back to Athens, and then we'll get with Mike Beatty next. So. Soil water.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. We're on page 79 of the tracking document. Soil and Water Conservation Commission in the budget prepared and submitted by the governor to you proposal take about a 5% reduction. You'll see the major items reflected under the Conservation of Ag Water Supplies, which is the second program. Reduction of personal services of $23,756. That's a vacant position that we already have in our agency, which we will not fill. Below that, you'll see a reduction in supplementing other funds in place of personal services that were paid by state funds of $4,000. That is repeated also in the next program, Conservation of Soil and Water Resources for $79,000, and then found in the last program, Water Resources Land Use Planning for $4,000. That adds to a total of about $85,000, Mr. Chairman and Committee, that we're supplanting existing state funds, state-funded positions with federal funds. Those grants end the end of this fiscal year, June the 30th. So we'll be able to sustain those positions through this budget year. In FY12, we'll be talking more in depth about the reductions there and the ways that we'll mitigate that, but that will allow us to keep those positions on in this fiscal year. The other major reduction you'll see is a $25,000 reduction in contract funds. That eliminates all water supply funding contracts that we had. We were running somewhere in the 100,000 range a couple years ago. This will take it down to 0. That adds to a little bit over a $150,000 cut, which, as I said in the beginning, is about a 5% reduction, and adds to about a 25% reduction since 2009, fiscal year 2009.
Representative Hanner has a question.
Under on 43.5.4, reduce contract funds for water-related studies. What type of studies are you talking about?
We have been using the last couple of fiscal years, Mr. Representative, to study our existing watershed flood control structures for use as water supply in northeast and northwest Georgia. We studied 28 structures back in 07 and 08 fiscal years. Since that time, we've taken reductions in that. We've not done any studies since that. We are using those studies now to go to the regional water councils and the state water planning process as potential sites that have already constructed that we could raise the height of.
I got you.
Yes, sir.
Representative Ellis Black.
Where are we on this installing these monitors on these irrigation systems?
On the agricultural water metering program, we've got over 10,000 meters on. We've expended a little over $17 million, all funded by the One Georgia Authority since fiscal year 2004. Current fiscal year, we did not install any meters. We've read the meters through the help of Georgia Forestry Commission. We have them under contract. And we've maintained a quarter of the meters. We do that once every 4 years. We maintain the meter. We do have about 1,300 meters that we know need to be installed. However, we've not been funded for that in the last 2 fiscal years.
Thank you for being here. Have a safe trip home.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I tell you what, let me get Kevin Clark real quick, Mike, and I'll put you next.
We got a lot of questions to ask Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Almost forgot you.
Happens all the time. We're item 1612, page 23 of the tracking sheet. We have one item, and it's an amount of $286,358 that would be paid to the Georgia Rural Water Authority. And no changes there. Hope it stays in the budget, and we'd be happy to contract with them and pay them the money.
Any questions? Okay. Thank you. No questions.
Did you? I was told you might want to update on the asset sale, the loan.
Yeah,
sale.
why don't you do that while you're here,
Okay.
son?
I'm a glutton for punishment, so
Okay.
I figured. Where we stand right now, and I'll go over kind of the structure of it, if that's okay. I'll be brief, but we have last summer we established a 501c3 nonprofit corporation that's associated with GEFA. It's called the Georgia Environmental Loan Acquisition Corporation. Long-winded way of saying we have a subsidiary that will buy those loans from GEFA and hold them, and then with the revenue comes into us, we'll give it to the holding corporation. They'll make payment to the bondholders, and that's how the transaction will work. We currently anticipate that we'll have 2 sales. One will be 2 loans with Cobb County, and then the second sale will be the pool. That's what most people talk about is the loan pool. And we currently anticipate there would be some 247 loans that represents 145 borrowers at the maximum. We anticipate closing the Cobb County sale the middle part of February, and then the pool would close probably around the middle to 3rd week in March. And we would generate the $288 million that the budget estimate, the revenue estimates contemplate. So.
Okay. How many loans do y'all have outstanding right now?
I can tell you the value of them, but I can't tell you the numbers. We have about $500 million in Georgia Fund. That's the state-funded program.
Any city, counties, authorities in the rears right now?
Nobody in arrears. We have some that may have inadequate debt service coverage or may not have supplied their audits on time, but everybody's making payments on time. We haven't had anybody late.
That's good. Okay. I don't see any other questions. Thank you for being here.
Appreciate it.
Commissioner Mike Beatty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Appreciate y'all letting me spend a little time with you. And you know, these are interesting times, but I think they're great times when you look at the role of government, and certainly we've done that and really focused on the things that we had to do, quit doing the things we like to do that were probably pretty good things, and as a result of that, I feel like we've gotten a lot more nimble. And I was trying to come up with a quote. I know Commissioner Black had a couple of quotes, and the only one I could think of was my granddaddy, who raised me on a prison farm. Some of y'all may be surprised at that, but he came up with a couple of quotes that when things would get tough, and he was a World War I vet and lived through a pandemic and depression and World War II, he said, you know, son, sometimes you just got to hang in there like a hair in a biscuit. And I think that's my... Some other things he said when I'd get a little too wordy, he'd always tell me, he said, son, you know what, silence is a good substitute for brains in your case. So so I'll try not to be wordy and get to the questions. If y'all look on page 22, I'm not going to spend a ton of time unless you got questions. And then on page 23, you'll see that we got some pass-throughs, and you've had GFA, Greta, and One Georgia. Those are pass-throughs. Those are attached to us and are pass-throughs. I think you've had two of those here. The one I wanted to point out, the homeowner on 16.5, if you look at the homeownership programs, y'all know we have GHFA, you know, we have rental assistance, and, you know, I was talking to John, I think we've gone from about 93 or 96 state employees down to 60, and really gotten focused, really gotten lean, and I think we're looking at about a 15.3% cut. But one of the things I was really proud of, we have a AAA bond rating with our GHFA, and you'll notice that we were able to completely eliminate that and send back into the budget $2,621,738. That was the state match. Because of that bond rating and our being able to really go into our reserves with GHFA, we're able to keep doing the down payment assistance and use other funds, John, you can help me with this, to meet that federal match of about $20 million. So I was really proud of our staff to get creative, say, you know, let's look at this, because we were using those dollars for down payment assistance for low to mod first-time homeowners. Now, we're able to increase, because of that, kind of getting better at what we do, I guess, or looking at ways to be creative, we're able to up the income range up to, I think it's 70,000 statewide, is that right? The income levels, and then 80,000, I think, in the Atlanta area, and with the homes up to 250. So I was really proud of our staff, Mr. Chairman, for looking at that and being able to not have to tap into those state dollars. I think most of the other things are administratively. I know I'll let you open for questions. I think we worked really hard to get here, and I appreciate y'all letting me spend this time with you.
Tell me about research and surveys, Mike. I'm not familiar with that. 16.8.
It's, you know, we are, you know, by law, first of all, we work with every city and county in the state. And one of the things we provide are there different surveys and that are required, and we work with the different cities and counties to provide that. I'm trying to think of some of the surveys, John. You want to?
Is that a duplication from the regional commissions that y'all oversee as well?
You know, I don't. You know, I think, you know, legally we are designated to do it. I think these are some of the things we need to continually look at, Mr. Chairman. I think when we were able to, and let me say this about the regional commission, because, you know, we merged from 16 to 12 and really have a really working with them to get more efficient. One of the things we feel like the government closest to our citizens is the most efficient. So we're looking at everything we do, Mr. Chairman, and that would be one of the things we'd look at and are looking at, you know, all of those different relationships with local governments to do more at the regional level. And I know we were able the first 2 years, because of the merger, not to have any reduction. Now I think there's a 6% there in the planning, but certainly we're continually to look for efficiencies there.
Any other questions? I don't see any more.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your time.
All right, we'll have the next meeting probably sometime this week, and we'll let you know. Thank you. That concludes this meeting. Thank you.